Recording entry hash 47290. Standard galactic date 3479.2. Senior Research Director Krell adjusted his sensory appendages as he stared at the holographic display, mandibles clicking in pure disbelief. The crashed human vessel lay before him, its once sleek hull now torn and twisted against the rusty landscape of XB-227. What caught his attention wasn't the crash itself. Space accidents happened all the time, but rather the absolutely absurd readings coming from his instruments. "Analyst Pax, come look at these life sign readings. This can't be right," Krell called out, his copper-toned scales shifting colors in agitation. The younger researcher glided across the observation deck, her anti-gravity modules humming softly. "What seems to be the problem, Director?" "According to these scans, there are 4 humans alive down there. Alive. On XB-227. Krell's voice rose an octave, causing several other researchers to turn their attention toward the main display. Pax's bioluminescent spots flickered in surprise. "But sir, XB-227 is classified as a death-class planet. The atmospheric pressure alone should have crushed them instantly, not to mention the toxic air composition and extreme temperature fluctuations." "Exactly," Krell exclaimed, bringing up more detailed scans. "Yet here they are, not just surviving but moving around. Look at these activity patterns." The massive view screen showed thermal images of 4 human figures moving purposefully around their crash site. They appeared to be salvaging materials and setting up some kind of primitive shelter using pieces of their destroyed ship. Research Officer Zenny, notorious for his dry humor, floated over to join them. "Perhaps our instruments are malfunctioning? It would be more logical than humans surviving on a death-class planet with nothing but—" He paused, checking the inventory scans. "A standard emergency kit and something they call a first aid box." "I've already run 3 diagnostic checks," Krell responded, his scales now shifting to a deep purple of frustration. "The readings are accurate, and get this, they're using strips of cloth and antiseptic from their medical kit to filter the toxic air." It shouldn't work, but somehow it is. The research vessel's AI chimed in with its mechanical voice. "Attention! Monitoring drones are now in optimal position, beginning full surveillance coverage of human survivors." Multiple screens lit up around them, showing different angles of the crash site. The humans had already constructed a basic shelter using debris and what appeared to be emergency thermal blankets. One of them was actually treating another's injuries using nothing but supplies from their ridiculously primitive medical kit. "This goes against everything we know about survival prerequisites," Pax muttered, her spots now pulsing with scientific excitement. "Director, we need to document everything. The Scientific Council will never believe this without comprehensive evidence." Krell nodded, his scales finally settling into the blue hue of focused determination. "Agreed. Begin full-spectrum documentation. I want every movement, every improvisation, every impossible survival tactic these humans employ recorded and analyzed. We're either witnessing a miracle of adaptation or the complete breakdown of known biological laws." "Or both," Zenny added with a characteristic click of amusement. "Though I must say, watching them wrap wounds with primitive fiber strips instead of using proper cellular regeneration fields is making my epidermis crawl." The research team gathered around their monitors, transfixed by the unfolding impossibility below. None of them realized they were about to document one of the most remarkable displays of human resilience in galactic history. Armed with nothing but basic tools, and what the humans kept calling good old-fashioned stubborn grit. Research Log Supplemental Hour 26 of Human Observation. Director Krell paced the observation deck, his scales cycling through various shades of confusion as he dictated the environmental report. Planet XB-227 conditions remain consistent with previous surveys. Atmospheric pressure at 4.2 times galactic standard, temperature swings of 80 degrees between day and night cycles, toxic atmospheric composition including high concentrations of sulfur dioxide and chlorine gas, surface gravity at 1.3 times human standard, By all measurable metrics, this planet should be their tomb, not their temporary residence.
"Sir,"
Pax called out, her anti-gravity module wobbling with excitement.
"You need to see what they're doing with the first aid kit now."
The main screen showed a human female holding up what appeared to be a reflective emergency blanket, a roll of adhesive material they called medical tape, and some sealed packages labelled gauze pads. "Are they building something?" Zenny asked, his sensory stalks extended in fascination. "Impossible," muttered Senior Atmospheric Specialist Trill, who had joined the observation team after hearing about the humans' makeshift air filtration system. "They cannot possibly be constructing environmental suits from medical supplies and crash debris." But they were. The humans had taken the emergency blankets, reinforced them with salvaged metal strips from their ship, and were using the medical tape to create seals around the joints. The gauze pads, soaked in some kind of antiseptic solution, were being used as improvised filter material. "This defies all logical progression of technological development," Pax said, frantically recording every detail. "You cannot go from basic medical supplies to environmental protection equipment. That's like using a cooking utensil to build a quantum drive." "Apparently nobody told the humans that," Zenny remarked, his voice carrying its usual sarcastic tone. "Though I suspect if you did tell them, they'd try to build that quantum drive anyway, probably using their shoelaces and something called aspirin." Krell pulled up the inventory list of the human first aid kit, reading it aloud with increasing disbelief. Bandages, antiseptic wipes, medical tape, scissors, pain relief tablets, antibiotic ointment, emergency blankets, latex gloves, gauze pads, and something called a multi-tool. This is not survival equipment. This is barely adequate for treating minor injuries. "Speaking of injuries," interrupted Chief Medical Observer Vrix, her crystalline form glinting under the observation deck's lights, "their crude treatment methods are actually working. The laceration on Subject 2's arm is showing signs of healing, despite their barbaric stitching technique using needle and thread from the kit." The betting pool had started shortly after the first day of observation. Currently displayed on a side screen, it showed the odds various crew members had placed on human survival. Survival beyond 1 week, 2,001. Survival beyond 2 weeks, 5,001. Survival until rescue, 1,00001. Death by atmospheric exposure, 3,1. Death by local predators, 5,1. Death by their own ridiculous ideas, even money. "I've got 500 credits saying they survive until rescue," Pax announced, causing several researchers to emit their species equivalent of laughter. "With those odds, I'll take that bet," Zenny replied. "Though I must admit, watching them turn medical supplies into survival gear is making me question everything I know about technological progression." Krell raised his appendages for attention. "New development. They're using the antiseptic solution to sanitize local water sources. The solution's chemical composition is somehow neutralizing the toxic elements. This shouldn't be possible." "Director," Vrix chimed in, her crystalline structure vibrating with concern, "I feel compelled to point out that nothing they're doing should be possible. Yet here we are, watching humans violate approximately 47 different laws of technological development and survival theory." "Make that 48, Pax added, pointing to the screen. "They're now using the reflective interior of the first aid kit box to signal each other across distances. Apparently, they've developed a crude visual communication system using nothing but reflected sunlight and desperation." Krell's scales settled into a rare shade of admiring turquoise. "Update the research parameters. We're no longer simply documenting survival techniques, we're witnessing the complete disregard for what we thought were universal constants of civilization. And they're doing it all with a box of bandages and what they keep referring to as duct tape." "Should we tell them it's impossible?" Zenny asked with his characteristic sarcasm. "Absolutely not," Krell replied, watching as the humans began constructing what appeared to be a solar, still using emergency blankets and medical tubing. "I have a feeling they'd just take it as a challenge." Recording entry #47298, standard galactic date 3479.9. Will someone please explain to me, Director Krell announced to his research team, how humans are turning bandages into rope. The observation deck had transformed into a chaotic display of holographic screens, each showing different angles of the human survivors' increasingly bewildering activities. 7 standard days had passed, and the humans weren't just surviving, they were building. The tensile strength readings make no sense, Pax reported, her bioluminescent spots practically strobing with excitement. They're braiding the gauze strips together in some kind of pattern that multiplies the structural integrity. According to these scans, their makeshift rope is supporting weights that should snap it instantly. Zenny floated nearby, his usual sarcasm tinged with genuine amazement. Fascinating, though not quite as fascinating as their new hunting tools. Would anyone care to explain how they turned emergency syringe needles into fishing hooks? Or why the local predators are actually falling for such primitive traps? The main screen showed one of the humans triumphantly pulling up a cage-like structure made from twisted wreckage and what appeared to be torn pieces of emergency blankets. Inside, one of XB-227's notorious acid-spitting crawler beasts thrashed helplessly. What's truly remarkable, Chief Medical Observer Vrix noted, her crystalline form pulsing with academic interest, is their adaptation to the atmospheric toxins. Their makeshift filtration masks should have failed days ago. Instead, they've somehow improved their efficiency by adding layers of antiseptic-soaked bandages in specific patterns. Krell's scales had been stuck in a permanent state of turquoise bewilderment for the past 3 days. The betting pool odds have shifted again. Survival until rescue is now down to 50-1. Apparently, watching humans turn medical waste into survival tools has made quite an impression on our crew. Speaking of impressive, Trill chimed in, they've managed to create a stable microclimate inside their shelter. The temperature readings show they're maintaining a livable environment despite the external fluctuations. They accomplished this with emergency blankets, crash debris, and what they call antiseptic hand sanitizer as a heat transfer medium. The research team watched as the humans gathered around their evening meal. A stew made from local vegetation they'd somehow determined was safe by using their first aid supplies to test for toxins. The humans were laughing, actually laughing while stranded on a death-class planet. Update to the official research notes, Krell dictated. Day 7 observations confirm previously documented human traits of adaptability and resourcefulness have been grossly understated. Subject 4 has successfully created a solar-powered distress beacon using nothing but the reflective interior of the first aid kit, broken communication components, and medical-grade batteries. The signal strength should be impossible for such a crude device, yet it is broadcasting on 3 different emergency frequencies. Pax suddenly let out a startled squeak. Director! They're upgrading their environmental suits. They've found a way to incorporate the crystalline growths from the southern ridge into their filtration systems. The efficiency ratings are, this can't be right. They're achieving 98% atmospheric filtration with modified medical supplies and rocks. Correction, Zenny added, checking his own readings. Very shiny rocks. Apparently that makes all the difference. Vrix's crystalline form shimmered with what could only be described as professional respect. We've been studying their medical techniques as well. They're not just surviving injuries, they're developing new treatment methods based on local resources. Subject 3 has created a surprisingly effective antibiotic paste using local fungi and the remaining antiseptic solution. By all accounts, it should be toxic. Instead, it's showing remarkable healing properties. Krell gazed at the main screen, watching the humans work on yet another impossible innovation. Send a priority message to the Science Council. We need to revise the entire classification system for species survival ratings and add a new category, humans with a first aid kit. Clearly, our previous understanding of what constitutes survival equipment needs significant adjustment. Should we include a note about their latest project? Zenny asked, pointing to where the humans were constructing what appeared to be a weapon using rubber gloves, medical-grade springs and salvaged metal. Absolutely, Krell replied. The Council needs to understand that giving humans access to even basic medical supplies is equivalent to providing them with an engineering bay, though I doubt they'll believe us without the video evidence. Recording entry hash 47301, standard galactic date, 3480.2. The observation deck erupted into chaos as the planet's atmospheric monitoring systems blared their warnings. A massive storm system, unprecedented in the recorded history of XB 227, was forming directly above the human crash site. Atmospheric pressure rising to 6.2 times galactic standard, Trill announced, her appendages flying over the control surfaces. Toxic gas concentrations will triple within the hour. Wind velocities approaching 400 units. Director Krell, no primitive shelter could possibly withstand these conditions. Director Krell's scales shifted rapidly between emergency red and decision-making purple. Bring up all surveillance feeds. How are the humans responding? The main screen split into 4 sections, each tracking one of the survivors. Instead of panic, the humans displayed an almost methodical urgency in their movements. They're reinforcing their shelter, Pax reported, her bioluminescent spots pulsing with a mixture of anxiety and amazement. Using some kind of cross-bracing technique with salvaged metal, and... Are those pressure bandages? Zenny adjusted his sensory stalks in disbelief. They're creating tension supports using rolled bandages soaked in their remaining antiseptic solution. The chemical reaction with the local mineral deposits is actually increasing the structural integrity. This is getting ridiculous. Director, Frix's crystalline form vibrated with concern. We have to consider intervention. The storm will hit in less than 2 hours. Even with their remarkable adaptability, the survival probability calculations are... Show me those calculations, Krell demanded, his scales now pulsing with rapid dots of conflicting colors. The numbers appeared on a side screen. Survival probability 0.0021%. Research Officer Zenny, Krell turned to his most experienced team member, your analysis. Zenny's usual sarcastic demeanor had vanished. The data suggests immediate evacuation is their only chance. However, given their previous performance, I find myself questioning the reliability of our probability models where humans are concerned. The observation deck fell silent as they watched the humans on screen. Subject 1 was now welding pieces of their hull together, using an improvised torch powered by pressurized antiseptic spray and electrical components from their emergency beacon. Subject 2 had created some kind of chemical sealant using crushed painkiller tablets mixed with local soil compounds. Subjects 3 and 4 were rapidly constructing what appeared to be pressure stabilization chambers using storage containers and medical-grade rubber seals. Look at their vital signs, Pax whispered. Their stress indicators are elevated, but there's no sign of panic. They're treating this like a problem to be solved rather than a death sentence. Director, called out junior researcher Mira from her monitoring station. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from their shelter. They've somehow modified their distress beacon to create some kind of electromagnetic field using medical-grade power cells and crystalline formations from the southern ridge. Krell began pacing, his scales creating a light show of competing decisions. The research protocols are clear. We're observers only. Intervention would contaminate the study of human survival capabilities. With all due respect, Director, Vrix interjected, her crystalline form flashing with urgency, we're scientists, not executioners. These humans have already proven themselves beyond any reasonable study parameters. The debate was interrupted by a collective gasp from the research team. On screen, the humans had completed what could only be described as an impossible structure. Their shelter now featured reinforced walls of layered emergency blankets and crash debris, sealed with medical adhesive and local crystalline formations. The makeshift electromagnetic field was somehow deflecting the worst of the toxic gases, while their pressure stabilization system utilized principles that defied conventional engineering. By the galactic core, Trill exclaimed, checking her readings 3 times. They've created a sustainable atmospheric buffer using nothing but medical supplies and scavenged materials. The principles they're using, they're not even taught in advanced engineering courses. Krell raised his appendages for attention. New research parameters, effective immediately. We continue observation, but emergency transport is now on standby. If their shelter fails, we intervene. Some data is worth more than strict protocol adherence. Director, Pax called out, her spots now pulsing with scientific excitement despite the tense situation. You need to see these readings. The humans aren't just surviving the storm. They're studying it. They've turned some of their medical sensors into atmospheric analysis tools. They're gathering data. The storm hit with devastating force. Winds howled across the planet's surface, carrying enough toxic gas to kill a Garaxian warbeast. The research team watched, transfixed, as the humans' shelter endured. Their impossible construction of medical supplies and desperation held against forces that should have atomized it instantly. Update the official record, Krell dictated, his scales finally settling into a steady blue of professional admiration. The human capacity for survival appears to be inversely proportional to the resources available. The less equipment they have, the more innovative they become. Standard survival probability calculations are hereby declared invalid when humans are involved. Should we tell the Science Council that humans have effectively weaponized basic medical supplies? Zenny asked, his sarcasm returning as the immediate crisis passed. Absolutely not, Krell replied, watching as the humans began collecting storm samples using empty medicine bottles. The Council is already nervous about human expansion into the galaxy. If they discover that humans can turn a first aid kit into a survival shelter capable of withstanding a Category 6 toxic storm, well, let's just say some information is better kept in restricted archives. The storm raged on, but inside their makeshift fortress, the humans had already moved on to their next project, apparently deciding that surviving an apocalyptic storm wasn't challenging enough for one day. Director, Pax asked, watching as the humans began modifying their atmospheric suits with storm-resistant features. Should we update the betting pool odds? After this, just mark everything related to human survival as even money. Clearly the impossible is just their starting point. Recording entry hash 47303, standard galactic date 3480.4. Those are not hunting calls, Director Krell announced, his scales blanching to a pale grey as the sound echoed through the observation deck's audio systems. Those are Nexo-beast mating calls. The research team watched in horror as their sensors detected not one, but 3 of XB-227's apex predators converging on the human shelter. Each Nexo-beast stood twice the height of a human, with crystalline claws that could shred reinforced hull plating and acid glands capable of melting through solid rock. Director, we have to intervene. Pax's bioluminescent spots were practically strobing with panic. The humans have survived everything else, but Nexo-beasts in a mating frenzy. This is beyond survival parameters. Calm yourselves, Zenny interjected, though his sensory stalks were rigid with tension. Look at the humans. Notice anything strange about their behavior? On the main screen, the 4 humans weren't running or hiding. Instead, they were methodically gathering their supplies and arranging them in a pattern that made no sense. Until it did. Are they... Vrix's crystalline form shimmered with disbelief. Are they setting up an ambush for Nexo-beasts with medical supplies? Magnify Sector 4, Krell commanded. What are they doing with those pressure bandages and antiseptic containers? The image zoomed in to show the humans creating what appeared to be tripwires using braided gauze, strengthened with crystalline fragments. The antiseptic containers had been modified into pressurized spray weapons, while emergency blankets were being used to create reflective surfaces around their shelter. This is madness, Trill exclaimed. We have to stop this. Protocol or not, we cannot watch humans commit suicide by Nexo-beast. Wait, Krell held up an appendage. Look at their vital signs. Elevated, yes, but these are not the readings of prey species. These are hunting patterns. The debate was cut short by the arrival of the first Nexabeast. It triggered one of the tripwires, which released a cloud of aerosolized painkiller medication. The creature staggered, its sensory organs overwhelmed by the unexpected chemical assault.
"Impossible!" Vrix exclaimed. "They weaponized analgesic compounds."
The second Nexabeast charged from the opposite direction, only to be met with a barrage of pressurized antiseptic spray directly to its acid glands. The chemical reaction was immediate and spectacular. The creature's primary defense mechanism backfired, causing it to spray acid in random directions away from the humans.
"They calculated the chemical interaction between antiseptic compounds and Nexabeast acid," Pax whispered in awe. "Without computers, without proper analysis tools, they just guessed correctly."
"Not guessing," Zenny corrected, his sarcasm replaced with genuine respect. "Look at the pattern of their traps. They studied the Nexobeasts, learned their behaviors, then turned basic medical supplies into specialized weapons." The third Nexobeast proved to be the most aggressive, breaking through the initial defense line. The humans responded by deploying their most audacious weapon yet, a makeshift flashbang device created from powdered medications and the power cell from their distress beacon. The explosion was precisely calculated to disorient the creature's crystalline sensory organs.
"Director," called out several researchers simultaneously. "Survival protocol vote requested."
Krell's scales shifted through a rainbow of colors before settling on a determined blue. "Vote denied. Look at them. Really look. They don't need our help. They're not just surviving, they're winning." Indeed, the humans had herded the disoriented Nexobeasts into a killing zone. Using the creature's own crystalline claws against them, they triggered a cascade of reflections from their positioned emergency blankets. The concentrated light hit the beast's prismatic hides at exactly the right angle to cause temporary paralysis. "Update the xenobiological threat assessment," Krell dictated, his voice filled with newfound respect. "Humans are to be reclassified. They are not prey species. They are not even predators. They are tactical innovators capable of turning medical supplies into anti-Nexobeast weapons. May the galaxy help us if we ever have to face humans with actual military equipment." The observation deck erupted in cheers as the last Nexobeast fled, leaving behind 3 very alive humans and one very important lesson about underestimating species with basic medical training. "Cancel the intervention vote," Krell announced, "but update the research parameters. We're no longer studying survival techniques, we're documenting the birth of a galactic legend. Recording entry hash 47,305, final report, standard galactic date 3480.6. The human rescue vessels descended through XB-227's toxic atmosphere, with all the advanced environmental shielding and survival equipment one would expect for a Death-class planet rescue mission. What they found instead was 4 humans casually drinking purified water from modified medical vials while taking atmospheric readings with jerry-rigged first aid sensors. Should we tell the rescue team that their emergency environmental suits are actually less effective than what the humans made from bandages and antiseptic? Pax asked, her bioluminescent spots twinkling with amusement. "Absolutely not," Director Krell replied, his scales shifting to a previously undocumented shade of hysterical turquoise. "Let them maintain their dignity. Besides, they wouldn't believe us anyway." The main screen showed the rescue team's initial approach to the shelter. Their bewildered body language was clear, even through their professional-grade environmental suits, as they surveyed the impossible structure before them. "Director," Zenny called out, actual emotion creeping into his usually sarcastic tone. "You might want to see this. The rescue team just ran a structural analysis of the human shelter. According to their sensors, it should not be standing. Yet not only is it standing, it's actually more pressure-resistant than their own emergency habitats." "Of course it is," Vrix chimed in, her crystalline form gleaming with what could only be described as pride. "They reinforced it with crystallized painkiller compounds and medical tape, clearly a superior building material to standard emergency shelter components." The observation deck fell silent as they watched the rescue team trying to convince the survivors to leave their makeshift fortress. The humans insisted on packing up their remaining medical supplies and improved equipment first. Final research log entry, Krell dictated, his scales now a calm blue of professional satisfaction. After 12 standard days on a death-class planet, 4 humans have not only survived but thrived, using nothing but a basic first aid kit and what they call common sense. They have successfully created environmental suits from medical supplies, developed advanced filtration systems using antiseptic compounds, weaponized analgesic medications against apex predators, built a stormproof shelter using bandages and crashed ship parts, established a sustainable food and water supply, and somehow turned their distress beacon into a multi-purpose tool that defies several laws of physics. Recommendation to the Science Council: immediately revise the galactic species classification system. Create new category exclusively for humans, tentatively titled, "Just give them a first aid kit and get out of their way." Director, Pax interrupted, the rescue team is requesting our observational data. Apparently they think their sensors are malfunctioning because they show the humans' makeshift atmospheric suits operating at 150% efficiency compared to standard equipment. Send them the data, Krell responded, but add a warning label. Caution. Reviewing this footage may cause severe distress in beings who believe in the laws of physics and logical technological progression. As the rescue ships prepared for departure, Zenny made one final observation. You know what's truly terrifying? These humans weren't even trying to advance technology. They were just trying to stay alive. Imagine what they could do if they were actually attempting to innovate. That observation does not leave this ship, Krell declared firmly. The last thing we need is the Science Council realizing that humans can achieve in 12 days, with a first aid kit, what most species take centuries to develop. The research team watched as the rescue ships departed, taking with them 4 humans who had completely upended their understanding of survival, innovation, and the proper use of medical supplies. One final note for the classified section, Krell added. If humans ever tell you they can fix something with bandages and antiseptic, believe them. It does not matter what the something is. They will find a way, and it will work, even though it should not. End report. Pax looked up from her final calculations. Sir, what should we do with the betting pool credits? Nobody won because nobody bet on them surviving and turning medical supplies into advanced technology. Convert it all to research funds, Krell decided. We're going to need a much bigger budget if we want to study humans with actual tools at their disposal. Though personally, I think giving them anything more than a first aid kit might be overkill. The research vessel prepared to depart XB-227, leaving behind a perfectly good shelter made of bandages and determination, and taking with them a new understanding of just how terrifyingly resourceful humans could be. End recording, and someone please make sure this gets classified as need to know. The galaxy isn't ready to learn that humans can survive anywhere with nothing but a box of bandages and sheer audacity.